Hello, this is Jomo Kenyatta, and you're listening to Black Mystery.
Donald Trump's campaign signaling a possible softening of his controversial position on the forced deportation of 11 million undocumented immigrants.
They will go out. They will come back. Some will come back, the best, through a process. They have to come back legally.
Trump's hardline stance, a signature issue of his campaign since the beginning. Now his new campaign manager indicating that policy is not set in stone.
Well, let me play something from what Mr. Trump has said previously. Listen to what he said back in November.
We're going to have a deportation force, and you're going to do it humanely and expensively.
Are they going to be ripped out of their homes?
Can I tell you, they're going back where they came. If they came from a certain country, they're going to be brought back to that country. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Will that plan include a deportation force, the kind that you just heard in that soundbite and that he talked about during the Republican primaries?
To be determined.
Key Trump surrogate Senator Jeff Sessions confirming that Trump is wrestling with the issue after a meeting with Hispanic advisors on Saturday, ahead of a big policy speech later this week.
He listened to a lot of people. I don't think he made any commitments. He's thinking that through. I think that's the right thing.
This potential shift coming as Trump attempts to broaden his appeal among African American voters.
I've asked the African American community to honor me with their vote. You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
Polls show his campaign way behind with this key voting bloc, following a string of controversial comments about minorities.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Look at my African American over here.
This judge is of Mexican heritage. I'm building a wall, okay? I'm building a wall. So if it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration, Chris. You wouldn't even be talking about it. This was not a subject that was on anybody's mind until I brought it up at my announcement.
Due to the staunchy photos of Ms. Trump on the cover of the New York Post, she is now the center of a scandal accusing her of being an undocumented worker. There have been many reports surfacing in response to this cover story, and I have rated to see if any will report her as an undocumented worker, illegal immigrant, visa fraud, tax fraud, and media bartering. Instead, I have heard later reports excusing her of not violating any immigration laws because, quote, she was not paid, and therefore no harm was done.
Trump insists she got her visa stamped every few months. If that's accurate, it would mean she had a type of visa, possibly a tourist visa, that needs to be updated periodically. But that type of visa does not allow working in the United States. The type of visa that does allow work is called H-1B. And the man who discovered Melania tells CNN he didn't sponsor her for an H-1B until 1996, a year after this racy photo shoot. But there's a caveat. The photographer behind the camera at the shoot, Yar Ale de Bosville, says Melania was a young model waiting for a big break, so she didn't get paid, which would mean she didn't violate any immigration laws.
We were making this kind of magazine to have exposure, and this exposure was bringing you to the next level to have catalog, campaign, and everything.
So Melania was not paid for this photo shoot, you say?
No. Nobody's paying. Nobody's paid.
If that non-paid photo shoot was the only work she did before getting an H-1B visa, she wouldn't have broken any laws.
All right, you heard the clip. She was not paid, so she was in the clear. But is it truly that simple? What the photographer and model did in this case is called media bartering. In 2007, there was a similar case heard in Canada immigration court, where a person has volunteered, quote, volunteered, and the conclusion of that case, the court found that the person was in violation of immigration laws and therefore had to be deported. The court found that, quote, it did not matter that he was not being paid. The court held that the person was engaging in the performance of an activity in direct competition with the activities of Canadians and permanent residents in the Canadian labor market. In other words, his actions of working, even for free for the time being, competed with the ability of the citizens and the permanent residents to work, which was prohibited under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act.
We need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly.
The Trump presidential campaign has been built on a slogan about building walls to protect the American workforce from undocumented workers. However, Mr. Trump's own wife is now being accused of being the same. If so, this would be a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Some may not be familiar with what is bartering. Here was a small clip I found on YouTube regarding an explanation of bartering.
The tricky part about bartering is that there's no cash that trades hands. It's usually services for services. So how do we value those services? Do I have income? What's the amount? When I provide, say, a tax return for someone, I know what the market value is. Let's just say it's $350. I know that when I provide that service, that I'm looking to get $350 of services back from the person that I'm bartering with. That, according to the Internal Revenue Code, is taxable income. Taxable income. A lot of people don't report it because there's no cash that trades hands. And that is incorrect. And that is incorrect. But a lot of times you can report that bartering income without ever having any tax effect. Here's the example. I prepare a tax return for a videographer that does videos for me. I report that income.
You have some law firms warning in regards of tax issues with bartering photography services, recognizing it as an income. So, is Ms. Trump was she an undocumented worker, which would have caused a domino effect, fruit of a poisonous tree, a domino effect that would have tainted her present citizenship and the process thereafter applying for permanent visa? You heard it here first from Black Mystery in relation to the Ms. Trump immigration accusations and charges, the analogy of utilizing the Canadian immigration court case, and two, the undocumented bartering prohibitions.
Our country is in serious trouble. The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East.
Unless Republicans are all Native Americans, then they are immigrants too.